Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. So Liverpool lost 2-1 at Anfield to Chelsea last night and have crashed out of the Carabao Cup at the first hurdle in the third round when they entered. And I'm finally back from watching the game in Liverpool to be able to give you guys a little bit more of my thoughts on the game. I've already done a little bit with the Redmen TV, made a little guest appearance on their instant match reaction show. So if you haven't seen that already, then do check that out. I'll put a link down in the description below. And once again, thanks to all the guys at the Redmen TV for letting me go on that, because it was very, very kind of them. They are an absolutely sound bunch of lads. But yeah, I thought I'd still do a video on this channel as well. I mean, like I said, in the instant match reaction, I talked through the game a lot already, but I thought I'd start with some player ratings because I don't always do that on this channel. And I think because Liverpool rotated so much, it was very interesting to look at the individual performances of certain players during that game. So starting off with Simon Mignolet, I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 because I thought, you know, given how we were feeling about him starting before the match, I certainly wasn't someone who wanted to see Mignolet. I thought there wasn't really any reason to play him, and we probably should have just put Alisson in net for that. I didn't really see why we wouldn't do that, but I think Mignolet did absolutely fine for most of the game. He makes the right kind of saves. He's imposing when he needs to be. He makes a good save in a few one-on-ones with Alvaro Morata and stuff like that. And I feel like the only bit where he really let himself down was where we asked him to do a lot of kicking in those last 15 minutes where the game started to get away from us and we needed him to start doing Alisson-style things. And at the end of the day, Mignolet isn't really that great at that, and you can't really begrudge him for not having that in his skill set. At the end of the day, if you can't expect it from a player, then it's unfair to criticise him for it. It's like Petr Cech at Arsenal. So, and I feel like that's a running theme for a lot of players. There were a few players in that side who we just asked them to do things that they weren't really capable of, and I think that's something that did let Liverpool down and prevented us from playing our usual system to maximum effect in that match. So yeah, I'd give Simon Mignolet a 7 out of 10. If I'm perfectly honest, I think Nathaniel Clyne gets a 6 out of 10. Defensively, he's a 7 out of 10. He's pretty much sound all the way through the game. He makes some nice tackles, but again, like Mignolet, we were asking him to do things that just weren't part of his skill set. We were asking him to bomb on, overlap with Xherdan Shaqiri, play crosses into the box, get in and become a threat in the final third, and that is just not something that Nathaniel Clyne is capable of doing. So in terms of his attacking performance, it's probably a 4 or a 5 out of 10, but again, he's just a player that I feel like you can't begrudge him because he doesn't have those skills in his locker, and at the end of the day, he's still put in a decent shift playing at right back, so I give him a 6 out of 10. I give Matip a 7 out of 10. I didn't really feel like he put much of a foot wrong. I think he carried on pretty much where he left off in the game against Southampton, where, you know, he doesn't look as great as Gomez or Van Dijk, and I don't think he ever will be. He just isn't quite as assured on the ball or as strong in the tackle or anything like that, but he still filled in reasonably well, and I didn't really have any problems with his performance whatsoever. I think Dejan Lovren gets a 6 out of 10, similar to Matip, but I think his playing out from the back, like Mignolet's, was just really, really poor. There are a couple of times where he tries to play a long ball and he just absolutely shanks it. However, he also makes some nice strong tackles that we've always been used to from Dejan Lovren, so I think a 6 out of 10 for him. Alberto Moreno gets a 5 because, you know, he does Alberto Moreno things for most of the game. I think, obviously, you know, the defensive side of his game, we all know about that, but I think the thing that disappointed me the most about Alberto Moreno in that game was how little he offered going forward, and I've seen people saying that it was basically because he was terrified of Victor Moses on the overlap and being caught out, being too high up the pitch, but I mean, it's Victor Moses, and I mean, Jurgen Klopp prides himself on the fact that he encourages his fullbacks to bomb on even when they aren't facing an incredible threat on the other side of the pitch. You know, Trent Alexander-Arnold was being screamed at all game against PSG to bomb forward and get crosses in, when actually he's much more interested in marking Neymar. So I don't think Moreno can really use that as an excuse why he didn't get forward a little bit more. I feel like he should have just made some overlaps with Mane, tried to get into that final third like Nathaniel Clyne should have done, and get some crosses in, because at the end of the day, I think the fullbacks is really where our system fell apart, and it just proves how vital Trent and Andrew Robertson as well are to this system. And then obviously he just gets sold an absolute dream by Eden Hazard for the goal, but if I'm perfectly honest, we all kind of expect that from Alberto Moreno every now and then. So moving on to the midfield, I think Fabinho gets a 6 out of 10. I think that performance yesterday just basically justified everything Jurgen Klopp's done with him so far. You know, you can see that there's a player in there. You can see that there is a good old-fashioned defensive midfielder in there who can also play the ball really well. But he did just look ever so slightly off the pace at times, and I feel like he struggled to dictate the tempo of the game in ways that Gini Van Aldum and Jordan Henderson have done so incredibly well this season. We need our number 6 to basically control every single area on the pitch with the way that they play passes and the way that they position themselves to cut out opposition attacks and stuff like that. that, and I feel like Fabinho just wasn't as assertive. But like I say, we can still see that he's got those skills there. He can still tackle, he can still make fouls when he needs to make fouls, and he's still got a hell of a ball on him as well. So I think give it a little bit longer and he will come good. But based on the evidence we saw last night, I can see exactly why Jurgen Klopp is holding him back just for now, because we don't want to throw him at the deep end too early on in his Liverpool career. And then James Milner gets a 7 out of 10, you know, does everything you expect from James Milner. He's hard-working, he's strong in the tackle, does the thing that you want from your captain at all times as well, and is always in the referee's ear, despite the fact the referee did still have an absolute shocker, and I'll come on to more of that later. But yeah, I thought Milner was all right. He gave the kind of 7 out of 10 performance that you always expect from James Milner. Naby Keita gets a 7 out of 10 as well. I thought he was actually looking really, really sharp in midfield. I think the only thing that you could really ask for from Naby Keita is that you could maybe ask for a bit more consistency throughout the 90 minutes. I feel like there were moments where he showed so much brilliance and he looked really, really on it, and other moments in the game where he kind of went missing for long patches of it. So I'd quite like to see him dictate the tempo for a more consistent spell throughout the game, but I think what we saw in flashes from Naby Keita was really impressive, and I'm not having that it was a foul at all in the build-up to that Chelsea first goal when he gives away the free kick. It's actually a fantastic tackle from Naby Keita, and it was right in front of me. So, you know, if I can see it, the referee should have done as well. And then moving on to the attack, Shaqiri was man of the match. I think 8 out of 10 for Xherdan Shaqiri. I really liked watching him live, and he was another player who was right in front of me for that first half, and I just felt like every time he got the ball, people were excited, people wanted to see what he was capable of doing, and he was always popping up in the right places as well. And I feel like the only bit that's missing from Shaqiri's skill set, and it did show at times yesterday, is the fact that I don't really think he has it in him to take players on. You know, he's got the ability to run and make lung-busting runs and get on the end of long balls. He's also got a hell of a shot and a hell of a pass in him as well. So he's got all of that going for him. But when he's just placed one-on-one and there isn't a decent pass on, and he's up against the defender and asked to go round them, he's not like Sadio Mane or Mo Salah. I feel like he just comes up short there. So hopefully that's something that can be worked on, and in an ideal world, he takes that free kick at the end and he absolutely whams it in off the bar, and then Liverpool win on penalties. And I can see why Jurgen Klopp was frustrated with him after the game, because at the end of the day, Klopp's angry because we lost, and I feel like he's basically just saying to one of his players, I know you can be better than that, you're clearly incredibly talented and you can be even better than what you showed today. But I still think Shaqiri puts in a pretty impressive shift last night. And then Daniel Sturridge, gonna give him a 7 out of 10. You know, didn't really see the worst of that miss when I was in the ground, but afterwards I watched the highlights, and yeah, it's not great. He probably should score that. But at the end of the day, he scores a more difficult finish, probably the most difficult chance he has all game. And he nearly wins it for Liverpool with an absolutely incredible shot that comes off the bar. So all in all, I actually thought it was a pretty decent performance from Daniel Sturridge. And again, I just don't get this whole idea that he's lazy, because watching him in that game, he was tracking back. He was trying to win the ball. He was getting in the right position. So I actually really liked what I saw from Daniel Sturridge. And at the end of the day, he's never going to usurp Roberto Firmino. But as a backup striker, there aren't many out there as good as Daniel Sturridge at the moment, so he is a fantastic sign of Liverpool's squad depth. And then Sadio Mane gets a 7 out of 10. Similar to Naby Keita in that there were flashes where he was brilliant and he took players on and he looked excellent and he looked like he could make the difference and win the game for Liverpool. But other times where I felt like he just fell out of the game a little bit, and I think he suffered in the same way Shaqiri did, that sometimes the pass wasn't on. You know, with Shaqiri, it was because Klein wasn't making the kind of overlapping runs, and Mane had a similar issue with Alberto Moreno as well. So I feel like you can't begrudge him of that, but I just feel like it was a standard 7 out of 10 performance from Mane, where it wasn't amazing. He wasn't one of his best games, but it also wasn't one of them games where he has an absolute shocker and starts booting it into touch and blamming them into Rosetta the Cop or anything like that. And then the substitutes, Jordan Henderson, I'll probably give a 6-2. I feel like he did all right. But when I talk about Jordan Henderson dictating the tempo, that's not something that he really did when he came on. And maybe that's to do with the fact that Fabinho was still on the pitch, and there was probably a little bit of confusion about who was playing where and whether Fabinho was the furthest back or whether that should have been Henderson, whether they were playing in a double pivot midfield too or anything like that. So you can't really begrudge him that. But then he did make a couple of late tackles and things like that when he really should have got to the ball and should have just been a little bit more alert. So I'd probably give, 6 out of 10 for Jordan Henderson. Firmino gets a 7 out of 10 because he didn't do that much, but what he did do I liked, and he did some nice stuff tracking back and doing some defensive work towards the end of the game, which was nice because in the past with Firmino, We have seen him use his defensive skills to put us on the front foot and start attacks by intercepting balls and charging forward on the counter-attack and stuff like that, but we don't really see much of him just getting back and booting the ball out for throw-ins to try and calm down the defence and slow down opposition attacks or anything like that. So that was a good sign from Roberto Firmino and one of his better performances when playing on the left-hand side as well. And then Mo Salah gets a 6 out of 10 because he hardly touches the ball, to be fair to him. So yeah, that's the player ratings. I mean, apart from that, there isn't a huge amount to say. There has obviously been this huge controversy around Chelsea's equaliser and people saying that Morata was offside. I mean, like I said already, I don't think it was a free kick in the first place. So if it was up to me, the goal wouldn't have even stood because of that, because Naby Keita wins the ball as cleanly as you are ever going to win the ball. And if that's a foul, then football has changed more than I think any of us ever wanted it to. So that is a shame that free kick gets given. But I'm not buying the Morata offside thing because, yeah, he's in an offside position. But if that counts as interfering with play, then I feel like just being offside at any point in any kind of attacking situation also counts as interfering with play. You know, he doesn't really make any attempt to play the ball because it never even reaches him. And, you know, it's not putting Mignolet off or anything like that. So I'm not having that whole thing about the offside. But like I said, I would have ruled it out based on the Naby Keita tackle alone. And I do wonder whether they can do that with VAR, whether they can actually go back that far. Obviously, they can rule things out for offside, and I think they got that call right. But I wonder whether they can look back even further and say, actually, the free kick should never have been taken at all, so we'll just chalk the goal off because of that. Would be nice to see whether that's cleared up, but we probably will never find out for sure. But yeah, apart from that, I do think the referee had a poor game. Like I said, Milner was in his ear all game, but I just think he gave out far too many yellow cards, and I think he lost the respect of a lot of players for that. He lost the ability to keep players disciplined because he was just giving those yellow cards out willy-nilly, and it was getting a bit silly. And there were a few penalty shouts as well that I wasn't really sure about, and I feel like we probably should have at least got one in that first half as well. So not a great performance from the referee, but at the end of the day, we did get knocked out by an absolutely spectacular goal by Eden Hazard. And obviously, yeah, Moreno doesn't do great, and I think Naby Keita probably could do better there. He loses Eden Hazard and allows him to charge in the box, and that's not really great either, and maybe is a suggestion of why Jurgen Klopp isn't entirely comfortable with playing Naby Keita in those Premier League games on the weekends just yet. But hopefully we've learnt our lesson with Eden Hazard now. We're not going to allow him to do the same thing at the weekend. And I think the biggest shame at the moment is that is going to harm how we use our squad depth from now on, because while, you know, it's not the most amazing competition in the world and the most important thing is that we keep players rested for the Premier League and the Champions League matches, I do worry that without the ability to regularly field the kind of back four and goalkeeper and attackers that we played last night, whether they might be a little bit more rusty, and when we do need to call upon them for a Premier League game or a Champions League game, or bring them on as a substitute when we want to influence a match and when we're losing and we need them to change the game or anything like that, whether they'll be a little bit more rusty because of the fact that they haven't had any League Cup games as well. And also the fact that, you know, I'm thinking of players now like Curtis Jones and Rafa Camacho and Dom Solanke, all those youngsters, and thinking they're now looking at the fixture list and wondering where their next game's going to come from, at least until the FA Cup, because yeah, we are going to rotate. But I can never really see those players getting much of a look in Premier League or Champions League games. So that is a crying shame. It's always a disappointment to go out of a competition. But at the end of the day, if we go on and win the treble, then it doesn't really matter, does it? So yeah, a disappointing result, not a great performance, but hopefully it's just something that Liverpool have got out of their system, and now they will go on and batter Chelsea at the weekend. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. Thank you for all the new subscribers that I have got off that Redmen TV show. That was very, very nice of you all to come over and subscribe to the channel. But yeah, apart from that, don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days as well. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter, and I'll be back either this evening or tomorrow morning for the pre-match show for the game against Chelsea on Saturday. Until then, bye for now.